hate being open, I hate being broken. I feel like an ocean filled up with emotion. Anger ain't a potion, rub it on like lotion. I can feel it soaking, reopen, the scars have awoken. I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go. I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go. The pain makes it real. I don't wanna feel, I just wanna kill the bad thoughts and steal a good thought and feel. I'm just lost, I feel, I'm just lost to feel. I need time to heal, I can't steer the wheel. Cause this drive it kills, and it gives me chills. A nice road it feels, I slip off the peel and crash all the steel. Will I ever heal? I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go. I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go. Swear I won't forget this, why do I regret this? In my mind reckless, thoughts are feeling endless. Sitting up I'm breathless, anxiety's infectious. I feel so defenseless, betrayed and embarrassed. I hate being open, I hate being broken. I feel like an ocean filled up with emotion. Anger ain't a potion, rub it on like lotion. I can feel it soaking, reopen, the scars have awoken. I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go. I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go. The pain makes it real. I don't wanna feel, I just wanna kill the bad thoughts and steal a good thought and feel. I'm just lost, I feel, I'm just lost to feel. I need time to heal, I can't steer the wheel. Cause this drive it kills, and it gives me chills. A nice road it feels, I slip off the peel and crash all the steel. Will I ever heal? I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go.
What's up, everybody? I always forget to unmute myself. What's up? All right, so I got us up on a two-person view thing so everyone can see who Chris is. Only real supporters have sub badges. True facts. True facts. And I got the shirt today. I got the shirt on today. Chris, you probably can't see it, but I've got my I am Knuff shirt on.
Oh, heck yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Let's
I love
go.
everything about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's one of my it's a super comfy shirt too.
I
Although
bet.
yeah, the days in which I can wear it, I don't know. Much more limited than I thought when I bought it. Just for a variety of reasons. But thanks for hopping on. I'm excited. Do you want to like do a quick intro of yourself? You are a two-time guest of the show at this point.
Am I a two-time?
This is a two, I believe so. Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, hello everybody. My name is Chris. I'm one of the executive directors at Esports Foundry. In the past life, I've touched pretty much every aspect there is to collegiate, from student club president to building programs, blah 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 blah. And I lead the Vanguard division at Esports Foundry, which is our production and live events arm. So I do everything that is related to business development, live events, logistics, hiring, talent, all those types of things that are really crucial in the industry. Very boots on the ground. And that is, oh yeah, I'm also an author. I write the trends in collegiate esports. I forgot about that.
Yeah, pretty legit. And do you white label that big event you do every year, or can I point out that you do it?
We you can point out we do it. We
Okay.
we were listed partners on that last year.
Okay. Yeah. So Esports Foundry and Chris do CECC, like the production behind it and a lot of it. So if you've been to CECC before, you can thank Esports Foundry. So I always like to say you're like the person in the shadows doing the most in collegiate. Like,
I'm definitely not doing the most in
well,
collegiate.
I think you're doing a lot, but you are like the diamond in the I don't even know the greatest kept secret in collegiate. I don't know. It's
You you make it sound like I'm an Illuminati. I promise you, I'm
I
not.
pretty close. I mean, if there was one in collegiate, I think you would be
No.
one. I mean, besides like the events you're doing, the trends report is probably what I would consider the most important piece of research that has been done in collegiate esports and continues to be done. And then you're on the award, the panel for esports awards. Like, there's just a lot of things that you do um, that the space needs, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I don't really talk about those things often. I
I
really
know.
like to show instead of tell these days, but I appreciate that.
Fine. I like to tell, you know, it's what it
That's
is.
fair. That's fair.
All right, so we're talking about a very wide topic that sounds super interesting, but I want you to drive a lot of the conversation. But I mean, initially we talked and it was like the numbers behind esports and like there's a lot of doom and gloom on this timeline about esports. Is it all doom and gloom? Is it
Yeah,
over? Is esports done?
yeah. I think yeah, I'm really grateful that you're able to have me and that we're able to talk about this because everybody that's here watching has seen the news of the past couple of weeks. Just within this past since January, right? There's been over 600 layoffs from large studios to small companies to everything in between, and it puts a lot of scare into a lot of people with do we have job security? Is our industry going down the right path? What does it look like for young bright-eyed students that are dreaming of the same things that we currently have today, and how are we building a world where those opportunities are existing for them and not just the people that just got laid off, and how can we assist them all? I remain optimistic that esports is here. It's not going to die. It's not dead. But it's course correcting.
That's good. But
And so we're
why
going to
do you
talk a little
think
bit
that?
about
Let's
that.
do it.
Yeah. So I mean, do we really want to start with just a high level question like that?
I don't know. How do you want to
I,
start this?
yeah, I well, first I want to start this by showing something off that my wife got me. Check out this giant Magic the Gathering card. Shout out to my wife Lindsay, first of all. She got me the Sauron, the Dark Lord, like golden card. Like, look, it makes the like so
That's
satisfying.
dope.
Anyway, shout out to my wife. I had to make the plug. Um,
That's super cool.
but anyway, going back to the conversation, I would love to talk today to your chat and to a bunch of people about, the business side of esports. So a lot of people don't see. We all make these assumptions, and we see there's VC money, and why are people making these dumb decisions, or at least perceived dumb decisions, or what decisions can people make? I think that is a really important thing that we can teach people so that they can walk away with a better understanding like where we are and why decisions we make have to be made, because at a certain crossroads there's definitely cultural shifts that we have created for ourselves as an industry, and then there's also things that we may do or we may not do that are really differentiators between different organizations, which highlight you know different things. We can case study and talk about what was the big picture with Creator League. We can talk about, what's the big picture behind sustainability of collegiate. We can talk about, what's the difference between an organization that's, a complete startup that, people in their 20s, early 30s are going to put together and start an organization like mid Esports Foundry, which is like a mid tier that has not raised money, to be clear, and then a larger organization, insert name here of company that has raised 8 figures or more in VC, and what different problems they're all dealing with, because the problems are different at every level in business. And so I think giving your viewers like a very candid behind the scenes on how all of that is will hopefully be helpful to
That'd be dope.
everybody.
I mean, as you know, most of my viewers are collegiate esports folks, so most of them know the dumpster fire that is all of the leagues that eFuse runs at this point. Definitely Call of Duty League that was canceled for the fall, spring TBD. CRL is still happening, but now there's no B stream being run by eFuse. And just a ton of layoffs from eFuse. So I'm sure that would be a really good thing to touch on and maybe talk through at some
Yeah.
point.
So, and I'll be very clear. I'm not going to talk negatively about any organization. Um,
I will.
during this. No, no, it's important not to, because the you can criticize business decisions, but when we're talking about people, we have to remember that they're people, and we're not products to be moved like you're playing
Oh, for
Civilization
sure,
5.
for sure.
Um,
And we're not privy to all the information, obviously.
exactly. But like to start out with like a high level baseline, um, a lot of the problems that in this particular situation, the company that you just named found themselves into was a problem by headcount, essentially, and by burn rate. So the definition of the term burn rate is how much money you're spending every month as a business in your attempt to become uh, par or cash neutral. Um, when you start out, you start hiring, you have your salary, but you also have your payroll tax, and you have these other expenses. So if I'm going to hire someone at a very reasonable wage of, in the Midwest, of call it $40,000, I'm actually paying them, $50,000. And so if I have a all in-house production team supporting them, and project managers and people doing all of that, if I have 5 people, it is right to assume I need to make $200,000 profit just to run that initiative. Whereas if I'm doing something as a, Scrappy, we're a bunch of students, I don't have to raise 200 grand. I can just do it because we're Scrappy students. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so those are different levels of scale that these different businesses have to run into. So the unfortunate reality of the B stream is that, hey, they had to cut probably $500,000 at a minimum, I would imagine. And yeah, what Dylan is saying here in the chat, you're shifting away from competitive esports back to community, because they weren't able to sell competitive esports. So we can talk a little bit about the business side behind competitive esports if you'd like, but it's so open ended. I'd love for you to guide me, and I can pretty much give you a full perspective onto really anything and everything from sponsorships to how to run an org, or how these costs are associated, and then we can kind of relay it on like why this is going to be fine.
let's talk about where is money coming into the landscape from right now?
Yeah. So money is not coming into the landscape as much from VC. So I'm not going to talk about that at all during this time. That's a cop out answer. So let's give a real example of if I want to do a live event in this day and age for a professional organization to do a live event, it's going to cost them realistically about 6 figures. And I'm going to explain to you why it's going to do that first. So we have our venue fee. So if we're going to do a large event, let's assume arbitrarily we want to bring in at least a minimum 18 bracket. We want to run multiple titles where that's already 24, 32, however many teams you have. You're going to have to provide some form of travel stipend to the mall. You're going to have to provide a prize pool. You're going to obviously want to do a broadcast. You're going to have to pay for equipment rental, pay for venue rental, pay for staging, pipe and drape, food for everybody, hotels for everybody. And as you can tell, very quickly, these costs just balloon up and up and up and up. And on top of that, you have to make it worth your time. And so the event itself, when you're determining profitability from a business, you can't look at it as just as profitable for the event because you're looking at the time in on planning that event. So you're paying your own payroll, or if you're paying contractors, someone is doing work that needs to be compensated, else your business is not sustainable. And so that's where we ultimately have to lean into. It's going to cost you roughly 6 figures today to do a quality event on the scale of what you're seeing
Right.
within today's market. Um, and that's like a really ambiguous term. So I'm going to use examples of, and I'm not saying these are true costs to these organizations, but if you want to see, for example, a unified LAN or a CECC LAN or a Hue Fest or a Gateway Legends, those events are high 5 figures to low 6 figures to run, all of them without exception. And you can do certain things for cheaper, but you're going to skimp on them, or you're going down a route of the ethical conversation of, are you relying too heavily on unpaid student labor? Are you underpaying students? Are you underpaying talent? Are you not flying in talent for the event? You're doing it all virtual. Um, Really, you look at 6 figures. So if you're looking at a 6 figure expense, you have to figure out how you're going to make 6 figures on doing that event. So historically, what people have done is they look at this on the media perspective. And the quiet part out loud of our industry is viewership. We all understand is nowhere near what it needs to be. You can't sell viewership. The typical media conversion in entertainment and communication is benchmarked today against social media spend. So in other words, if I were to spend whatever event budget you wanted me to spend on Twitter ads, would I get a better ROI spending my money on, Coach Antor's LAN than I would just dumping it all to Twitter ads or Facebook ads or Instagram ads, or TikTok ads, right?
Right.
That's your benchmark, which is about $3.50 per thousand general impressions. So if I need to sell a $50,000 event for a media package, do the math. 50,000 is 50 times $3.50. That's what I can buy on Twitter for one social media platform, and I have to buy it for all the different platforms. But that's the equivalent, which is actually not very much money, right? 50
Right.
times 3.5 is less than $1,000. And we're selling those same media packages for 50K, 100K, 200K, or we're trying to at least.
Right.
Because we want to give you guys the good lands, right? We want to go to the best venues and have the biggest stages and rent the LED walls and give players that superstar experience, which requires the money. So that's what a lot of the businesses have been doing. And when I say a lot of the businesses, I mean truly all of them. And if they're not doing them, then I wouldn't consider them in the tier 1, tier 1.5 of Scholastic at this time. So obviously there's a real problem that is the way in which you can make a media transaction for a digital product, but it's very clear that our ROI is not synchronous with what we're asking for. So we have to come up with a different solution. What is the different solution? Well, there's this product that emerged from traditional linear television and really kicked off on Twitch YouTube era. It's called a media buy. And so there's a lot of people who say, oh, so and so buys views or whatever. That term doesn't mean you're buying like a view bot to come in and just selfishly like show up and all of a sudden Banter with Antor is like 5,000 viewers. That should not be the ethical realm of business anymore. But I would not say that it doesn't happen. But a media buy is you'll go through a third party agency. So an example of an agency could be Character Select Agency, could be UMG as an agency, it could be Night Media as an agency, it could be any one of those different type of agencies, and those are all real groups if you want to look them up. And they will connect you to effectively top 1 percentile content creators or streamers that are in a category in which you're trying to broadcast. So if I'm doing a Valorant LAN and I need to get enough viewers to sell my product, I need to get people who actually have those views, not my product having those views, to co-stream my event or to be involved in my event, to bring their communities on in. And so then I have to do that. So as an example, I could buy a Valorant streamer that gets 2,000 concurrent viewers, which will average to about 40,000 uniques per stream. And I could buy him for about $5,000 for an hour between an agency. I could also go directly to him and try to create those relationships. But when you're at a certain level, if you don't have, again, the head count, which you're paying minimum 40, 50 grand a year for just to have per person, I don't have the bandwidth to create those relationships often. Or I have to hire the person who does, which means I'm paying way more than 40 to 50K. So we just often sub them out to agencies, of which I previously mentioned. So I have to build in the price to the agency in my ask. So what effectively has happened for the past 24 months in Scholastic Esports on the competitive side for these live events is that you're selling the cart before the horse. You have these arrangements that you have with these media companies, and you say, hey, I'm going to sell you X number of things per year. I want a discount throughout all the views, and they'll give you a discounted rate under a bundled rate under a contract that you'll sign, and then you'll sell those to a brand under the expectation of X million views, because now you have an ROI because you're targeting a certain demographic that is more valuable than a generic Twitter impression. And you sell against that, and part of that revenue will go to your event, and part of that revenue will go to the agency, and then whatever's left of that will be your profit. And that's what we've been doing a lot of. And so that's the reality of that's what's been funding the third-party collegiate event space for the past 24 months.
Right. And Dylan
And that
touched
is
on
what
it.
still is.
Dylan touched on it a little bit about Twitch student and front page stuff. I know there's a couple leagues that have gotten front page access to Twitch that definitely increased viewer numbers.
So front page status is a really convoluted thing. Twitch is a very nepotistic beast right now at the moment. And if you want to buy front page stats at Twitch, you actually go through Amazon, not Twitch these days.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, Amazon sells that nowadays. And you have to actually do a minimum spend, and they won't let you, if you're a new customer, buy front page at Twitch. They want you to go through the Twitch ads process first. And that starts at $250,000. And you have to spend a certain amount of money before you can get on the hero page, which is the hero carousel on Twitch. Not the front page, but just the carousel. And then if you spend enough on that, then you'll have the option for a traditional brand to get front page. So getting front page on Twitch is really more of today in collegiate about your connections coming in and gracing you with an equivalent in-kind product that is being sold for that amount or higher on the traditional sphere. And those products sell to an impression count. So it'll be $250,000, and your ad will run until you get your whatever the metric is, right? 50 million views or 75 million views, or it could be as low as 500,000 click through, or it could be 1 million click through. Yeah, Uconnect saying they used to do that. But I don't do that anymore unless you have those direct connections. And for a lot of people, that used to be Twitch Student, which no longer exists in the capacity that it used to. So the what used to be back in the day is not necessarily today, and that part of the space has just moved on completely differently from that. It's extremely hard to get front page status. I don't think, and this is not a cocky thing, but I don't think I could do it,
Yeah.
barring the right event.
Right. Right. And just from like, how much do you know on terms of like the numbers of some of these like big collegiate sponsorship deals that
Yeah,
these
so
leagues have?
the biggest collegiate sponsorship deal that I know of at the moment, um, for an event or an event series last year was 250,000.
Okay.
That was the largest in collegiate.
It,
This year
do you know if
we
that
will
sponsor re-signed? Did they stick around or did they leave?
that process is ongoing.
Okay.
It is likely that they will resign, and it's likely they'll resign larger. So I anticipate the largest signed deal for this calendar year will happen in Q4, and that will be for 500,000 or higher for collegiate specifically. But keep in mind what I just told you, right? These media deals are predicated on media interaction, which Scholastic can't facilitate. So even though it's collegiate native, the platform of really what's going on is it's a buy through at different agencies. So always keep that in mind. A whatever deal headline you see, especially if it's a flagship sponsorship, 9 out of 10 times that money's not all going 100% back into the event. There's a significant top off that is being spent to make those promises come true. And then there's a percentage of that that the organization is keeping for themselves as they need to pay their people. And then the rest of it goes towards the event, right? So out of a $250,000 event, you might see a $50,000 prize pool at most.
Right.
At most. Um,
And you
but
talked
we will
about,
also see $1 million probably by either Q4 or Q1 of next year. We will
interesting.
see there is a high likelihood that we will see $1 million or more.
Fascinating. And do you
And
think
there's
that
a
would be,
likelihood we'll see that from more than one organization,
do you think
just to be
that's
clear.
being driven by the developer sponsored leagues?
No,
Okay.
0%.
I mean, I'm just looking at it from GG Tech made this massive investment to get C-Lol and C-Val. They obviously need to figure out a way to recoup that investment. And I just thought maybe that could be one of the potentials, but I don't know anything about the business side of GG Tech, to be honest with you.
The business side of GG Tech is is pretty well ironed out at this point. Their team is very um, very close with Riot. You know, a lot of their team are former Rioters, and they've come from Europe. They've come from Latin America. They're coming into North America. They've hired a lot of really capable people. Some from EFU, some from Wisdom, some from other groups. Um, and they are going to cross sell against all of their own things. So they have to make up their difference of I think it's $3 million in the next couple of years, and they will. I'm confident they will. Um, the question is for them is how are they going to do so in a way that interacts with Riot Studios and Riot IP in a timely manner, because Riot Studios may not necessarily play ball in the same cadence that GG Tech will want them to. So GG Tech will have to get itself out in the world, which will take that developer brand likewise out into the world, which will be a good thing for the average student, and it'll be a good thing for collegiate as a whole. So I'm happy for GG Tech.
Nice. And you mentioned the idea of working through creators that are already in the space to increase that viewership. Have we seen co-streaming in collegiate?
Yes, you have. You've seen it at almost every national finals.
Really? Okay, I
Almost every single
totally have
one.
missed it. Who are some of the streamers that we've seen co-stream at this point? Anyone that I
Yeah.
would know of?
Yeah. So there was a Smash event that had Hungry Box co-stream.
Oh, cool.
We've had OTK
Okay.
co-stream. We've had a couple of other media agencies, top tier, doing some co-streams and things like that.
Fascinating.
So I'm just giving two
Right.
two examples, one from a pro org side and one from a content org side, and those should help you fill in the blanks with all the others.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay. And you think we're going to see a lot more of that continuing on?
Yeah, so from the business end, monetization outside of the apparel companies. So disclaimer, Esports Foundry owns esports gear, and so we are a merch and apparel company among many other things. So outside of our niche of those and the BSNs and stuff, pretty much every org hasn't solved that problem outside of selling merch to schools. Um, the There are no winners in the space that have identified other ways of significantly monetizing Scholastic to a successful level. And I say to a successful level, I'll give other examples. If a lot of, especially as you go into like the high school area, a lot of the high school leagues will try to sell or gatekeep access to their communities, even though you can reach them with the nonprofit state orgs. They'll quote 10, 20, 50,000 plus to just a brand for, a general, what you might call a 1 day activation or something that would be very, very easy or very small. A lot of people are selling access to their community for money at this time,
Mm-hmm.
but I would not say that that is successful because it is not a significant amount of their revenue such that they're sustainable through that alone.
Got it.
The only thing that is sustainable through it alone at this time is the media conversation, which, to be very clear, is very different from the media rights conversations that were originally discussed when Learfield and Level Next were kind of getting involved in the space in 2020, 2021. Those are two different things. But merchandise and monetization outside of like the esports gear type companies, that hasn't been solved by anybody. Um, and outside of live events being propped up through broadcast, live events themselves haven't been solved because probably of the culture that we have created within live events. And so there's definitely a lot of work to be done within the culture of Scholastic Esports. And if we can change the culture of the expectations of both directors and students to a certain degree, then we'll see a lot more sustainability within these third-party organizations, which will then allow them to lower their prices. Because the reality is, if you're struggling to stay afloat, you're going to have to charge as much as you possibly can for every single event because you're not doing a lot of events. So if you know you're only doing 8 to 10 events a year and you need to make $500,000 to pay your payroll because you have 10 people on staff at, let's say again, a Midwest rate of $40,000 a year, you need 500K profit minimum to stay afloat, which
Right.
means you need to sell, if you're doing 8 events, do the math, you need to sell a shit ton.
Yeah.
And each event has to be a banger, which, as we know in collegiate, isn't always the case. So a lot of these organizations have also gone outside of collegiate to kind of pour their foundation. So, as an example, there's a company in Atlanta, Georgia, that they did collegiate for a hot minute, but they sustained themselves through developer contracts, and they sustained themselves further and insulated themselves by taking contracts within film and production, so traditional media, doing things from like saying yes to weddings, saying yes to editing B-roll or doing animation media shorts. In fact, the most profitable pro esports organizations to date all make their money from non-esports ventures.
Mm.
So, for example, there is a really prolific team right now that is owned by a very wealthy man, and what he did is he picked up the during the COVID layoffs, Disney laid off one of the Pixar studios or something like that. They laid off one of their animation teams. This guy picked him up, and now he's doing $200 million deals for Netflix with that team.
Whoa.
And that single team of like 40 guys that he hired is funding all of his esports efforts. Now you can play those games at a certain level of money, but that's a different business problem, right? That's a different business problem for his organization at scale because as soon as he loses that Netflix contract, right, his
Right.
burn rate is now millions of dollars a month or at least per quarter, and he's going to have to cut those people. Hence, you see layoffs. And that's where you see issues when you hit that realm of like esports engine, where they have literally 90 plus full-time employees across the world. As soon as Riot says, hey, we're going all in with Striker, and we're no longer needing your services in the same degree in which we previously needed you, JK, you don't have that revenue anymore. And so at a certain level, when you scale your business that large, you need those whale clients, but those whale clients are also innovating. And so as soon as they don't need you, you have to scale down. It's always a problem of business on the pyramid side. And so using ourselves as an example, we're a mid-tier organization. Our payroll is 6 figures a year, but it's low 6 figures. And so we don't have the burn rate that others that we compete against have, which is a professional advantage for us. And because we're Midwestern based, we can charge Midwestern prices where we're routinely bidding against, an LA or a West Coast based company or an East Coast based company that has to charge, instead of $35 an hour, 20 or 40 or whatever the number is for X service, they have to start with 60 because their guys are starting off making more because their cost of living is higher. And so there's those different problems in the space. But right now, the biggest issue is really the big whale clients of the world are closing their doors. So Epic Games isn't giving out as many contracts anymore because they're slowing down North America esports operations, and Riot Games is going in on Striker. So you'll still get contracts with Riot, but they're going to be segmented. And then GG Tech coming in really means they're just going to offset a lot of those other opportunities back to GG Tech. So now you have to compete with effectively their alumni group to get those sides. Activision Blizzard is a whole different thing. They're winding down a lot of their esports operations, and so they're not really giving out gigs either. So anyone who's looking at this from a we're just going to get dev contracts, you're already set up to fail. So you have to figure out something else. What are you going to do? Well, you can do conventions, you can do trade shows, you can do traditional sports and entertainment, you can do traditional music and entertainment, you can do media, but none of those are esports. You have to sustain yourself somehow. Or you go all in on selling a really big product, but now you have the different problem that there's X number of tournaments, X number of things, and you're squeezing a community with a cool event. But there's 5 events happening in your region in that quarter, and what director is going to all of a sudden say, hey, I'm going to afford to send all of my players to all these events? And so you're going to ultimately find out that the problem with Smash Majors, right? You can't just create a Smash Major with a large event and a prize pool because the players can't afford to come to it.
Right.
So the only way you can do is you have to build your IP, which a lot of the sustainable leagues have done, and you have to cross sell against that from a media perspective, which is the default way to do that currently, and that's what people are starting to do well. There's other ways to do it. If you create a good relationship, you can leverage that with a digital, say you work with a digital marketing agency, and you can leverage into what they do on bigger scale and help them because you're the budget provider, which means you can get a 6-figure gig because you're underpricing yourself because it's esports. It's kind of a weird thing. Like, we're not tech, and so we can't charge these high prices. And I think people, especially when you look at the pro space, the average league player is making like what, $300,000-$400,000 a year, and so they're expecting they're going to make 6 figures or at least 80,000 to start, and they're going to throw a riot when they're not. But the reality of the matter is, it's not sustainable at this time. If you have a reasonable expectation, however, or a reduced expectation, then it becomes much more sustainable.
Interesting. Um, s- uh, processing.
Yeah, I can keep going.
How does this reflect onto the collegiate space? And is there anything that we can draw from other industries or the sustainability of other things? I look towards traditional athletics as a potential of like, what could the future look like if things continue the way they are?
Yeah, I think that collegiate is currently both in an innovative state and a rut. We're innovating in the sense that we are forced to create new products to achieve the same or better brand deals than before, but we're running on promises right now. And as soon as you don't fulfill those promises, you're going to fall over yourself, and then the house of cards falls down. And then you find yourself in a position that some of these other companies have had in, where they've created a really, really good business plan on paper. But as soon as one key thing goes bad, the whole thing collapses because they're missing promises left and right. But I think the opportunity that a lot of people are just now starting to think about um, is how they can leverage their communities in a non-media perspective to earn the business of brands and earn the interactions with brands. And so to go into a little more detail about that, there's a deviation from traditional sports natively. We don't have linear television broadcasting rights. We don't have a merchandise pipeline. So the two largest drivers for traditional sports are not available for us today. So we can't compare the growth rate 1-to-1 because we don't have fandom, average income of a fan, and we don't have mass viewership adaptability, right? We get CECC brought in, a couple 100,000 unique views over the course of a few thousand concurrents, tens of thousand concurrents, and a couple 100 million impressions the entirety of the season. But one NFL football game beats all of that still.
That's fair.
So
Yeah.
we have to innovate into different directions. No one's going to stop walking down this road. And I'm seeing Dylan saying we're walking down a road. I think competitive is a road, and it's still going to be the road, the primary road, and that's not going to stop because the ecosystem of business that we've all built, there's too much entrenched necessity otherwise as esports directors and coaches and players and scholarships and everything. You change that overnight, everyone's left with, again, what? Broken promises, which means they're going to get fired. So no one's going to do that. But if you can take the communities that are garnished and leverage them in creative ways, you can exchange that leverage for what I would call ethical money. And so an example for that, for everyone in the chat here, an example of an ethical engagement for money would be leveraging your mostly STEM collegiate player base to STEM companies in your region that are looking desperately to hire people, because we have a brain drain problem in the United States where people just leave to go to major metros, and everyone wants to work for big companies. They hire and they pay more, which leaves banks, manufacturing, aeronautics, cybersecurity, health, Medicare, insurance, all those companies desperate for good, strong, tech smart, articulate talent that are local. And if you can leverage those people to your communities, selling the players and the people as the product, not the viewership as the product. And if the players and the people are consenting to that type of exposure and sponsorship, you can make a shit ton of money that way.
Yeah.
And that alone
sure.
will completely reverse the media side, which then means you don't have to spend as much money on ancillary things. The other problem that hasn't been solved is the problem of fandom, which is if you're doing like a live event, and I'll even use, since you disclosed it, the CECC, this past year, every live event I've ever done in my 11-year career now in Scholastic Esports, we've never solved the Sunday problem, which is you have a big event on a Saturday, and then everyone who doesn't make day 2 just fucking leaves, and no one stays.
Yep.
And so you have like a big sponsor coming in, and they're expecting X thousands of attendees or X hundreds of attendees, or they're expecting a crowd, and you're selling them like, we're going to do this thing. It's going to be a pools into top 16, and then we're going to have grand finals on Sunday. They're like, all right, this sounds great. And they show up and they're buying in their booth, and then Sunday shows up and there's like 20 people.
Right.
And they're like, what the fuck just happened?
Right.
And that has happened over and over and over and over. It doesn't matter the brand, the IP, the name, the event, location, or anything. It's the same problem.
Well,
And that's a
it
culture
costs
thing.
more for schools to stay another day.
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. And Coach Alney, shout out to him, another spectacular example of a human being. is right. Like 90% of the players at a tourney are players, not spectators, which goes back to the original point that I just made there is we haven't solved the fandom problem, right?
Right.
If you don't have real fandom, you're not going to get any form of what you're looking for long term. So we have to solve that problem. And we clearly haven't solved it digitally with broadcast. So we have to solve it physically in some way. And this is where I think, I'm going to put my hat right here. Like DreamHack does this really well. They have a festival model. That festival culture does a really good job. And we've tried to do this localized on college campuses before, on Division I school universities too, like really
Mhm.
large enrollment schools. And it hasn't worked, I'll be honest, in the past, because it takes an abject, enormous amount of work, which translates to payroll, which translates to time and money and budget against the event, which is already running a tight budget, as we've kind of alluded to prior. It's not worth the ROI of an organizer to take that on as well, in addition to what they're currently taking on, because they're already taking on so much. So it's really, really, really hard to find that home run, and you really have to find a home run every time to do that. But if we can culturally solve that problem of fandom, then you create a whole new world of possibility for both the monetization and sustainability of these types of events. And that ultimately comes down to oh my goodness, Dylan. He's so trolly half the time. He's like it's like light switch, troll on, troll off. But no, in all seriousness, um, the biggest problem that we just have to face right now is the reality understanding. And I said this at the NACE summit earlier this summer. Um, Average club participation is going down year over year,
Right.
and it's been going down year over year since pre-COVID. And there are some schools that pop up and pop off, and yeah, we're not talking a linear bar, right? There's many different pathways in this world of esports, but net on a national scale, club participation is actually decreasing. Club size is decreasing, club activity is decreasing, club participation is decreasing, new member rates are decreasing. The data is immutable on that. And Dylan, I will debate you so quickly on this, and we will not agree. And you can do your own trends in collegiate esports survey and figure out your own data, because this ain't anecdote. This is 100% fact. Um, and that's okay. I still love you, buddy. But where the fact of the matter is, we see this, as putting on my former director hat on, or putting your former director hat on. You see it in your communities, right? Every year, the size of the
100%.
clubs are shrinking. Every year, the size of the lands are shrinking. Um, and until you can revitalize that community, I don't think you'll see the revitalization of the problems that I just mentioned. You won't solve fandom. You won't solve day two problems. You won't solve those other things, because we prioritize so heavily competitive, and our whole job titles and descriptions are on competitive. We don't have bandwidth or money available to invest in solving those problems.
That's fair. I guess my first slight hot take of this conversation is that I think this era of collegiate esports is really good for the long term side of it. I think
Mm-hmm.
since I started in collegiate, I felt like there were too many players in the space who were providing a subpar product, and they needed to be pruned. And we were just too fractured of a space, and this has forced collegiate to let go of some of those not so premium products or not so premium events, if you will. And I think for the long term, I think it's a strong positive uh, moment. It doesn't feel great right now, but for me, like I think it's a really strong. I think it's good for the long term of collegiate
I
esports.
I also feel mostly on that one. I agree with you that this landscape has been heavily pruned over the past few years. But there's always going to be new entrants coming in, especially when we saw CCL cancellation within that same week. There were 3 organizations that said we're the new CCL,
Right.
and that's fantastic.
Right.
But it's also frustrating as hell to those players who now are going to have to figure out which one are we playing in, man.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
Um, And you're just going to go through that cycle over and over. Like it's the cycle of business is success, complacency, failure, a reorganization, success, complacency, failure.
Right.
And we just came off of a complacency side. We hit some failure, but everyone else is turning at their own rate, and so that every year you're going to see that attrition and that turn. Where I worry is when those big organizations do fold. Like, say what you want about eFuse, I'm terribly saddened to see that CCL died, because that impacts hundreds of students that are on scholarship for Call of Duty, um, and just ruins university plans, promises made to administrators, puts people's jobs in question when they have to report, hey, our Division 1 league and conference that we, whatever, pay dues to something, or there's a business relationship behind the closed door, whatever. Like, hey, that died. Like, that doesn't happen in traditional college athletics. Imagine
Yeah.
having to have that discussion with your AD and say, yeah, those guys we just paid on scholarship for that one league, that league died. Like, that's a terrible thing. That
Yeah.
is such
My
a bad thing.
optimism,
Like, that's horrible.
I mean, my optimism says that that's not a long-term thing, that something else will fill its place if there's a need
Mm.
there. And whether that's driven by Activision Blizzard or it's not, I think something will happen. Some league or
It
some
will.
entity will fill that void. Now, CCL was awesome. Everyone loved being in it. It does suck to see that happen. But I wouldn't say that all of Call of Duty competitive collegiately just disappears when that goes away.
Yeah, no, it'll reorganize, but just optically for the business side of things, right? Not talking about the players for a moment, but the business side, you're certainly not building any trust when
Yes,
those things
that's
happen.
very
So
true.
we don't advocate for churn in a space, but we do advocate new places. We don't gatekeep new people coming in and trying to provide a good product to students. Like, that's not the point. But it's definitely very volatile, and it is a little unreliable right now.
That's fair.
But
Yeah.
to add on to that point, though, the point I was trying to make was we have that understanding of the scene where we're kind of in this very not this very fluid environment. At the same time, the smaller the space gets, the more profitable and sustainable the organizations that remain do become
Right.
in
Yeah.
in a different contrary way.
You're fighting over
Um,
the same amount with less competitors.
yeah, and we're still at a space in Scholastic where if you look at the core model is school participation and student participation, which means that directors are the target demographic, really. Directors with budgets are the preferred demographic. Budgets are increasing, but not on a linear scale. So when we say nationally on a linear scale, things are going up, it's true. That's generally because of whales that are getting, massive six-figure, five-figure budget increases. The majority of budgets don't change too much, which really means if you look at it, even if you say, wow, the scholarship distributed has increased from 17 million to 25 million year over year from 21 to 22, it'll probably be around 30 plus for 23. Those are all really great year over year growth rates, and you can talk about the growth rate of programs year over year, but you can't translate that to more business opportunities at the same time.
Mm.
The same amount of schools won't be able to pay for NECC, the same amount of schools won't be able to pay for NACE, and then the same amount of schools won't be able to pay $50,000 for a LAN at their school, or they won't be able to pay $50,000 to travel to a LAN at another school. Like, to go to CECC for a lot of schools was a $30,000 commitment simply on the fact of buying hotels and plane tickets.
Yeah, that I don't. I mean, I obviously know not many people know how to solve that equation at a mass scale for a lot of different schools. Some people in their individual schools have figured it out, but it has to change. Like the amount of money that, I mean, the one entity that's making a crap ton of money from esports right now is colleges and universities through tuition dollars. Like it's
Oh, yeah.
insane. And the budgets that they have for these esports programs is so minimal, but the income they're getting from tuition is the same as their traditional sports counterparts when we look at tuition generally. And what these schools are doing is just getting a massive profit off of esports compared to traditional athletics. And like
Yeah,
at some point, that needs to change.
I don't know if it needs. I mean, I think it will change, especially as the industry gets more homogenized and the non-innovators, start getting called out as non-innovators. It won't be as heavy of a profit center as they are today. Um, but it's good that they're making money, because as long as they're making money, the underlying fact is that if you are in scholastic esports and your business model is servicing students in some way, shape, or form, there's money for you somehow. If you
True.
emailed every single director in the United States and said, I'm a media company, I want to do a roster reveal shoot for you guys, like what eFuse did for Akron last year, someone's going to pay you 10 grand.
Right.
You'll find 5 people who will do it. That's 50 grand. If you're a one man show, congratulations. There's your salary for the whole year. Go
Mm-hmm.
pay your taxes and then chill for the next 9 months. Um, and if you're a company, you know, charge 15. And now you have 2 full-time employees doing just that. And then
Right.
you have another team working on other stuff. Like there's sustainability as long as universities see the ROI. And so as long as that's happening, which it is happening, which you're right, like that's good. And I hope the universities continue to invest and continue to innovate, as they natively will, because they're competitive as fuck.
Right.
And as those budgets increase, it'll bleed out more to the third parties. And as long as if that bleeds out more, then we will also see prices decrease, and we'll see the reliance on media and media buys and things like that decrease, because you won't be beholden to it as much. You won't need to rely on that product. You'll be able to do your product at Michigan State every year, and Michigan floats, a certain amount of it, and CVB floats a certain amount of it, and you've got these local sponsors that are probably in part negotiated by Michigan State, for example. I'm just using Chris's program as an example. There's no representation to that whatsoever. Um, but just as an example, and an organization can be sustainable on doing like 4 or 5 of those a year. And so
For
it's
sure.
good that these things keep happening, right? It's good, and it will continue to grow. And that's the optimism of collegiate, because that's the one thing that we have that everyone else doesn't have, is that we have a guaranteed customer base. We have a guaranteed money in, money out that isn't just sponsorship.
For sure. Yeah.
The problem is that we just need to wait and survive long enough to where schools can afford to pay us all more, um, and that we don't have to, have organizations like the NECC where X percentile of them are unpaid memberships.
Right.
If everyone paid the NECC would likely be a profitable and fully running and super scaled organization to what exists today, which is an amazing thought. Like I really relish to see what they are in 4 years,
Right.
or translate that to any other group, like unified with their MEC, I think it is, or MAC, or CECC, for example. Like any one of these groups are doing good things for students, and if they can continue that, then I'm happy.
For sure. I know, like, my 100% confidence, like I am so sure that at least NAIA and D3 esports are not going anywhere, because
Oh
there's
no.
way too much money. D2s, it can depend on the institution. D1s, we'll see. I'm optimistic about the larger schools, but when we talk about money and ROI, like, it's already set and figured out for small schools. I mean, you look at Northwood's esports program is more than 10% of their entire student body. Fisher is now more than 13 or 14% of their entire student body. Like, and if you get rid of esports, you're talking about a tenth of your entire school leaving. That's not
Oh yeah, they have
happening.
full job security.
That's not,
They will,
yeah.
in theory, they'll get what they want, and they won't have a reason to leave, in theory.
In theory, it's yes. But yeah, it's crazy how much money is being earned from esports through tuition dollars. It's actually insane. And watching the high school scene continue to grow, although not as fast as collegiate, is a positive in my opinion. I mean, I've been saying it since I started in collegiate in 2019 that, like, high school was not growing nearly fast enough to support the
Mhm.
growth of collegiate, and I think we still continue to see that to this
And
day.
it'll take such a long time, because just the nature of high school is so inherently different from college,
Right.
from so many perspectives, especially how it's regulated. It's going to take an enormously long time before we see par on high school side. But what I'm exceedingly excited to see is increased innovation in the space, because it's funny, the older I get and the more visibility I see in the biz dev side of the space, the amount of times that I hear different organizations are pitching the same brand on different products every quarter or year is astounding. Um, and you always have to keep your mouth shut because NDA, but it's just I wish to see more innovation, because the same brands are getting pitched the same goddamn stuff from every single league, everywhere. Um, and it's just funny. But at the same time, as you get older, you realize just how wide the world actually is and how much opportunity there is, and that's how the orgs differentiate themselves. So that's how eFuse try to differentiate themselves truly with their brand strategy. It didn't work out for them in this particular instance, most recently, but I mean, on paper, the idea was pretty genius from start to finish. The idea was
Yeah,
really good
I thought so too. It just
on paper,
right.
but that's the esport we play, is right, the business game.
Right, right. All right, so you're the author of the trends report. What is your high level trends you're going to see from a business side of collegiate the next 3 years? What is there
That
something big that's going to happen? What can we
Yeah.
expect? What do you got?
All right. So here's expectation number one. Um, I'm gonna give a bad, a good, and then an innovation. The bad one is that we're actually going to see a decrease in quality in certain types of live events over the next couple of years. And I say that because the people who bankroll the largest events currently did all of those at a substantial six-figure loss.
Right.
And those groups aren't going to do that, or like don't have an incentive to keep doing that.
Right.
And so what people saw as like, the nationals or whatever, or just really fucking cool shit, those are not expected to stay. Like every year you have a cool event like that, take it as a blessing and go to it. It's not a guarantee it's coming back. And it will not be the case in the next couple of years. I'm saying that now. Um, the other side to it is that a lot of the operators that are getting to that level are going to make a lot of mistakes because they're new to that game. And let's all give them grace and love and understanding, and not shit on them for good or bad decisions, because they're all growing pains of organizations. So that's the bad. We're going to see a decrease in high quality live events over the next few years, even though we may see an increase in the number of live events.
Got it.
That's bad. The good is that we're going to totally innovate in an entirely new type of brand sponsorship for collegiate, which will involve students and student talent and talent engagement, which will basically, and it's already happening today. Multiple different programs have done this, but the idea of taking brand relationships and funneling them in as career pathway opportunities for your students is going to be an amazing selling point that university programs will capitalize on, and that is going to pump in a ton of extra money that people didn't think about or won't have expected, and that money is going to have to go somewhere, and it's going to go towards more faculty, it's going to go towards more scholarships, which will mean more league participation. Down the line, it'll trickle down to the students, which will mean more events. So hence why I say there'll be more events, but less quality high ones, because there's going to be a lot of new money coming in. And then the neutral portion of that is that in 3 years, no one's going to have still fixed the fandom problem of college esports, and you're going to have Sunday fucking grand finals, and there's 20 people in the stands still. And it pains me to say that, but I don't see that changing anytime soon. Like you have to manufacture your fucking viewership or your live attendance by like tacking that on to something bigger, because the reality is people just aren't traveling to it. They don't, even if it's on your campus, they don't want to go.
Unless you have
They don't
free
want to stick
pizza.
around. No, not even.
Well, they're not sticking around, but they'll show up.
Exactly. That is the biggest problem, and I would give anything. Heck, I would pay money for there to be a brain trust of people between different professional organizations in this space to come together and try and solve that problem.
Is that just a
If
collegiate thing, or is it a problem at the pro level too?
No, it's only at the collegiate level.
Okay.
Pro level, it's not a problem in the slightest because there's fandom.
Right.
You have fandom. Um,
A
you
lot of
have
that
people
fandom
who
is
will go.
based on skill of player, right?
It's
Like,
based on a lot of things. It's based on, your love of a game, your love of a team, your love of a player. It could just be that you go to DreamHack every year and you're just there, so you're going to check out the CS:GO finals.
right.
Like I went and checked out RLCS, and I don't play Rocket League, but I love producing Rocket League, and I love seeing and looking at how many LED panels they have and all that. I spent hours there just trying to math out their stage.
Yeah.
Um, because I found that really fun. So they grabbed me. I didn't know any of the teams playing there. I don't follow pro esports. That's my separation of work-life balance. I don't do pro esports.
Right. Well, it's just interesting because we're starting to see pros and ex-pros enter collegiate. And you'd think that if it was just a skill thing, like you could build fandom through that, but it's not. Is it a lack of content? Is it?
No,
I mean,
it's
like,
not a
what
lack of
is it?
content. These organizations are putting out an insane amount of content. It's just time in. Like honestly, this is a numbers game, and unfortunately, it's not anything that I don't think we can solve. I think it's just age, right? Bryce Blum put out a series of essays. I encourage you to go to his Twitter and read them on the monetization of esports recently. And in there, I'm paraphrasing from him. He said, "Every day an MLB fan dies and two esports fans are born," and that's a very true statement. Right now, we're in generation two, realistically, right? Of college esports. Um, Debatable, but when the generation that's in today, they graduate, get in the workforce, have kids, and those kids go to college, that's when you'll see fandom.
Hmm. So in 25, 30 years.
Yeah, probably.
Nice. We're gonna
I
be in
would
the
say
history
10.
books.
I would say 10 to 15. Because realistically, you have the high school kids, like the Gen 1 high school, Gen 2 high school that have some semblance of stability. They're going to come up into collegiate. They're going to be like, wow, this is really cool. Likewise, you say you have the pros and stuff who are going to come down into collegiate. They're going to be like, this is pretty whatever. It's going to be different expectation. But
Right.
the high school side matriculating to college is going to be huge, and thank God we have that, because otherwise we'd be like 20 years down before we create that next level jump on that pyramid growth of our industry. We're just needing to survive for a couple of more years. Like, let's innovate, let's build cool shit, let's focus on students, let's make great things. But really, the end of the game is just we got to survive for the next couple of years. The next wave is coming, and it'll be here.
I'm excited. I'm excited right now. I as much as I alluded to doom and gloom in my tweets, I think it's an awesome time to be in collegiate esports because
It is.
there's
It
so
is.
much opportunity for innovation. I mean, I talk to a student and they'll have 3 different ideas and I'm like, no one's doing any of those. Do one of them. Go. Like, run it. Do it. Like, own it. And that's not a normal thing in most industries. And that excites me. But we're over an hour at this point. I hope all the nerds in chat who are the big brains of collegiate enjoyed this conversation, because I know it was a little bit thicker than my normal ranting. But I really did enjoy it, and I love seeing into the mind of you, Chris, because I mean, no one knows collegiate the way you do in terms of your background and being in here for so long, but also the report and all the interviews you do. I think it's just so invaluable.
Well,
And
I
I appreciate
appreciate
hopping
that.
on.
I would push back and say I'm not that special. I've just been around a long time, and
You
my
definitely sell yourself short. I mean, I don't know if you understand how important the trends report has been to so many people in this space in general. Like, I cannot overstate that enough. I know multiple people who've gotten uh, uh, pay increases, they've gotten budget increases, scholarship increases just because of the report you put out. And that's not even mentioning Esports Foundry and everything you guys have done with that company at this point.
Yeah, we didn't
I mean,
talk
it's
about shit
crazy.
about what we've done.
I,
I haven't even plugged myself. Shit.
hey, do it. Do it right now.
I don't know. I'm so bad about talking up ourselves. I'll say the best thing about Esports Foundry, why I love working with this group. We've been around for a couple of years, but we really put our foot forward in the last like 18 months. Um, we've never done a Series A, so I think I can confidently say we're the largest company in scholastic and probably grassroots esports that hasn't raised money,
Yeah.
which is crazy to think. We're gonna do seven figures this year in revenue. We're completely profitable and sustainable. We, there's been so many layoffs this year from other companies. We're not going to lay off a single person. There's no need to lay off anybody. Um, we've got a really great crew of people that are really dialed in on culture and on perspective and just giving it all for the people that we work with. And also low key, we own some of the largest support companies in the space.
Yeah.
We own a center management company. We own esports gear. Vanguard alone has a $500,000 plus inventory of equipment. I'm pretty sure I own the most gear out of anyone in college esports, and we can bring those to anybody, which is really cool for anything. And we're starting to get a lot of traction on that. But we haven't really put our foot forward, like you said. We've kind of been very quiet, heads down. We're here to help, very humble. We're going to start probably talking about ourselves a little more in the coming weeks, especially as we start ramping up the fourth year of the Trends Report.
That's awesome. That's good. Yeah, you all are doing some really cool stuff. And that portfolio of companies is honestly, I'd put it up against anyone else in the space. Like it's impressive. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
we swing
Metactics is
swing against. Oh,
the
sorry,
LAN
I
software.
interrupted
No,
you.
you're good. Metactics is the LAN software. For those of you unaware, Esports Gear, obviously one of the most beloved esports jersey companies in the space at this point. I mean, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how we grew up. Like literally, I've been involved in startups before, and I haven't always done it well. Every step on your journey, you learn from your failures. And so when I stepped into this role, I told myself I would do it right. Um, and I'm pretty sure we're doing it to a degree of right. I definitely give ourselves like a B or like a B minus on our report card if we had to be given a grade. But it's always really cool knowing that we're kind of like the underdog. We've always been that underdog, and we're always going to bat against organizations that have run 10, 14 plus $1 million raises across their lifespan,
Right.
and that's the weight class that we get to fight against. Um, and hopefully one day we'll be in their full weight class, but we just grow one step at a time, and I think that's how this industry needs to grow. It's just one step at a time.
I agree. I think most of the others have fizzled out or you're seeing them fizzle out. So kudos to you on that. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. I appreciate you hopping on the call, hanging out. Always a pleasure speaking with you. And where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at WBBChris, and that's about it.
Nice.
Follow me on Twitter. I'm a red
Twitter.
flag if I don't have more followers.
Oh,
I need
that's
more
true. All
followers.
right, go throw Chris some follows on Twitter, everybody.
Please and thank you. I'm begging you.
All right.
I'm
Well, thanks
begging.
everybody. That's gonna be it for this week. We'll be back next week with another banter with Antor. Have a good rest of the week. See ya.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you.